is DDS. From the DDS studios, we are your hosts, Blake Belton, Bradley Newberry, and live from the Sunshine State, it is Matthew Two-Tone Blue Parker. Parker, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Just Sunshine State, but today's a little rainy. It's kind of nice to get a break from the sun.
I understand.
We'll be talking about a team from the Sunshine State.
There just so happens to be one that we're going to be talking about today on this, our 2022 AFC South prediction show. We've been waiting to do this one for a long time. Got the hometown Titans, and we got this guy with whatever that kitty cat is over there on his shirt.
Roar, baby.
Whatever. But hey, while we're here, got your attention, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down below. Really helps us out. It's quick, it's free, it's easy. Go ahead and give us a rumble on Rumble. Follow us on all of our social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And you can catch all the audio versions of these podcasts on your favorite podcasting platform. Newberry, what do we got in store today?
Gentlemen, we are going to start with the AFC South champions, the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans earned a regular season record of 12-5 behind NFL Coach of the Year Mike Vrabel. A very, very memorable season, to say the least. But some would argue that it was wasted as they once again lose at home as the number one seed. There's just some negative juju there. They can't get that right for some reason.
Yeah, and it always seems to kind of center around the postseason, right? I mean, kind of the rub is that they're able to kind of do pretty well in the regular season, but they always seem to lose to people that they shouldn't ever lose to. And then when it comes down to can they win the big game, just haven't quite been able to get over that hump yet.
Yeah, I mean, looking back to last year, I think probably the number one thing that you'd say to sum up the season is disappointment. It felt like last year was the year. It really did. But those lucky Bengals didn't just get the Titans. They had a truly magical run and knocked it out for a lot of teams. And the other thing I look back last year, if I'm just summing up last year, the other thing of disappointment is injuries. Literally more people were on this Titans roster than any other football team in the history of the NFL. Right? It is something, but yeah, it's disappointing. But man, I'll tell you what, I was having a discussion the other day. It was disappointing, but my God, there was a time when I was the only person in the stand and we won 3 games for 5 straight years. So I'll take the disappointment of losing the playoffs if I have to.
Yeah, it ended in disappointment, but by God, and it was the correct decision with awarding Coach Vrabel with the Coach of the Year. We talked about injuries in every single podcast last year. What they were facing with their schedule and the injuries seemed like impossible. I mean, even you two were saying, they're going to, if we can just split, come out of it and just split.
Yeah.
They did better than that.
I know it was hard being a homer because you're like, you want them to win every game, but you're looking at it and you're like, man, if we could just come out of this 4-game stretch, 2-2, I'm happy, because we're on our 90th player, 88th player on the roster from injuries, and not having the king for whatever it was, 6 or 8 games or whatever it was. It was brutal. But this year, hopefully we can avoid the injury bug. We got a lot of spots that we needed to improve on. And I question whether we actually improved in certain areas. Obviously the departure of AJ Brown, big deal for us. As far as our offense goes, did we fill those gaps? I don't think you ever really replace someone like AJ Brown, but I think that you can become as good or better team without him if you have the right offensive weapons in place. And I think we did actually a pretty good job of that.
Parker, tell us about the 3 new additions that the Titans brought in to try to replace the production of AJ Brown.
Yeah, I'll center that around exactly what I wanted to say, because when people talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, they talk about, they brought in these people like Tyreek Hill to replace Tyreek Hill, or the Packers, they've got Romeo Doubs. They have some of these people that are trying to replace Devontae Adams. All I ever hear with the Titans is they lost AJ Brown. I never hear the how they try to replace them. If you look at last year's numbers, because it's not about A.J. Brown, it's about replacing production. A.J. Brown last year had 869 yards, guys. Like, people are sitting around talking to him like he was a 1,500-yard receiver. 869 yards, 5 touchdowns. Julio had 434. Ferkser had 291. We lost all 3 of those guys before I get to the guys we added. Those 3 guys, the top pass catchers, 1,594 yards and 8 touchdowns. So you're trying to replace all those guys. They bring in Robert Woods, affectionately named Bobby Trees, who I've loved for years. Last year had 556 yards and 4 touchdowns before getting hurt. At that time, he was a top 10 receiver. If you look at his numbers in the past, in 2020, 936 yards. 2019, 1,134. 2018, 1,219. AJ never hit either one of those 2 numbers, ever. And that was with Jared Goff as a quarterback. If you pencil him in for what he did with Jared Goff in 2020 to be ultra conservative and give him 100 less yards, 836. That replaces AJ immediately. And finally signed a tight end, Austin Hooper. I don't care what you think. He's a good tight end, and the Titans like to use tight ends. In 2020, with a healthy Baker and 2 other tight ends, he had 435 yards. The Titans don't have anybody else at tight end. I mean, they have a rookie, but, whatever. So I'm just telling you. Then, of course, they bring in Treylon Burks. They bring in Kyle Phillips. If Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips can combine for 300 yards between the 2, it replaces the entire production. So I'm just saying you need to look at it as a whole and not just that we lost A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and I think because of that, if you have that many weapons that can add up to the sum of whatever nebulous number A.J. Brown brought in, I think ultimately you're probably a more balanced team on offense if you have 3 targets or 4 targets that are viable that can put up yards, then just having to rely on one person, which is essentially what we kind of had to do last year, is we were very heavily reliant on AJ. And honestly, between, the 10-man injuries and just blatantly dropping passes occasionally, I think that everybody's kind of a little more butthurt than they should be about AJ Brown leaving.
Yeah, the offense was 15th in scoring last year. Ryan Tannehill obviously is the key. 67% passing, 21 touchdowns, 14 picks. You got to believe that coaching staff, they want that interception number to come down. Just be more efficient, get the ball out quick. Derrick Henry, of course, returns. You add Hassan Haskins.
Mm-hmm.
Tight end Austin Hooper. The fun thing that if you've been listening to us kind of banter back and forth with Austin Hooper, not so much yards, but we have a little receptions. Parker says over 80.
180.
Over 180 receptions. So I took the under. And let me read you his receptions here in the last 6 years. 19, 49, 71, 75, 46, 38. He's not reaching 180 receptions. Free money.
He's going to have the 71, 75 type of year because the rookie years for tight ends don't do anything. So I throw those first numbers out. And in Cleveland, like I said, it was a 3-man rotation at tight end. There was no tight end that was on the field. He has got the job here. He is going to be the Jonnu Smith in this offense. Like, he has got that role. He is the number 1 guy. Especially, and the Titans traditionally love throwing to tight ends. Like last year when we just had one on the team.
I'm intrigued with the quick passing game with Kyle Phillips.
I'm excited about it. The guy is shifty. He creates space like some of the, you don't even want to mention the other names that, in my opinion, he looks like he creates space like. He's so quick. He's so shifty. He runs great routes. He's got good hands. He returns the ball on kickoffs and punts. Those are all great things. I expect big things out of Kyle Phillips this year. I'll just say that.
I think he actually might be a key of if this team is going to be taking another step or not, because we know Robert Woods, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be fine. We expect Treylon to be fine. Who's next, though? The depth is the concern, right? I don't want it to be Nick Westbrook-Akina out there rolling up against the Jets being terrible. I know him and Kyle Phillips play different positions, but you get my point. I want him to be the third guy that's looked at as the most catches there. I think he has I think he's got a good chance to be something special there in training camp. I mean, that's all we've got to see from him so far. He looks phenomenal so far at this point, and that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah. Before we go to defense, let's talk about offensive line. Could be the elephant in the room. This offensive line seems to run block just fine, even with the departure of Quessenberry. I think that they'll be able to open up enough holes as if Derrick Henry can't create his own hole. But the question is pass protection. And I know the starters didn't really, I don't think, played very much in the preseason. You also didn't see Ryan Tannehill one damn snap in the preseason. Will the pass pro hold up?
Good question. This is one of the bigger questions. I don't know. I think the starting offensive line is going to be okay. Taylor Lewan, I left tackle, I'm totally fine with. I know people talk about how terrible he was last year, but you got to remember, he was coming off that terrible injury. He gave up 4 sacks all year, and 2 of them were in week 1 when he was not right. But after those first 4 weeks, he was dominant. Ben Jones is fine. Nate Davis is fine. Can NPF step in at right tackle? Because he looks like he's going to be the guy there. I'm not so worried about the starting unit as I am who's behind the starting unit, because it's only a matter of time with the boys in the trenches. Somebody's going to go down, right? So when that happens, I don't know who's coming in for what, but starters, I'm optimistically hopeful for the starters. It's what's directly behind those guys that has me terrified.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there. I mean, look, even the starters are probably going to have their moments where you're going to be like, what in the hell was that? But I think for the most part, given the style of offense that the Titans are going to run, they're going to be allowed to go be bullies. They're going to ask them to pass protect some too, though, is the problem. And to Parker's point, if any of those guys goes down, gets rolled up on, I'm not impressed by what I saw in the preseason by our backups. So I'm hoping as a unit, the starting group can stay healthy for the most part, and maybe we can patch something together if one of them goes down, pull a guard or something. I have no idea, but we're really gonna have to hope that we don't get bit by the injury bug on the offensive line, in my opinion, this year.
I do think with the offensive line, maybe some people got a little bit as much hate as Taney's been getting lately. I hope during the preseason, maybe he should get a little bit more love, because offensive line looked bad during the preseason, obviously, but it was second and third. I don't even know who some of these people were. But
yeah,
we also have to look at, it was Malik Willis back there, man. Like, he was doing Malik Willis thing, standing back there for 10 seconds, learning the game. It makes you appreciate like the quarterback second cover up the deficiencies. I'm not calling him Tom Brady out there. I'm saying everybody knows that name and knows what he does. So just having somebody that can help cover that up, and hopefully this year he can. I mean, I know last year he got beat down, but I'm just watching those preseason games. It made me think, like, you know what? He covers these hole up on these lines better than I think people give him credit for.
Anyone have any other thoughts about offense before we move to defense?
No.
I do have one other thing about offense. And I think it's the biggest thing about the offense, and it's Todd Downing. Todd Downing as offensive coordinator was bad last year, and I can prove it, like horrible, like one of the worst offensive play callers. After the Cincy game came out, audio came out where the offense lined up at times, and the defense was literally knew what was coming out of Downing's offense. Like, you could hear him say, hey, they're lined up like this. It's going over there. Like, they knew that little screen pass, that stupid screen pass to Chester Rogers, they knew it was coming. So, we went out and got Tim Kelly from Houston. And this guy is responsible for, as much as I loathe the guy now, Deshaun Watson. He made Davis Mills look like one of the best quarterbacks rookies last year. I just think this guy might be something special if he's taking over the passing game. And I trust Vrabel to sit back and self-scout and say, oh my God, we were good at running the ball, but our passing game was awful. We need to fix that. So I'm very hopeful with Tim Kelly.
Well said.
That's a good point. Good point. The defense, though, 6th, number 6 in scoring defense, led by big man Jeffrey Simmons and MTSU's own all-pro safety Kevin Byard. But just recently, this week, we have learned that the Titans have lost Harold Landry with a season-ending injury. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's
At
always
the last second.
It's always tough when you lose your leading your sack leader from the year prior, but I think this offense, I think this defense can overcome it. I mean, it's going to be definitely a big loss, but as they say, next man up, right? So obviously Big Jeff's going to have to step his game up. Danico Autry, they're really going to have to push it, and it'll be interesting to see what they scheme up to fill that void.
Bradley, not just MTSU's Kevin Byard, but Titans have the best safety duo in the league. And I feel confident in saying that. But yes, losing Landry is massive. I had a whole point about it I wanted to make. But still, again, Big Jeff going another year forward. He's going to be dominant. You got Autry. But the name that people are kind of forgetting about is Bud Dupree, man. Like, this is the guy they went out and paid to be the sack guy. And if you remember last year, he was still hurt over those first, 8 games. He was coming back. This should be the year where he makes his money. So hopefully, and I was all excited about having all those guys. Hopefully Weaver can move in. Hopefully, but Dupree is the guy that needs to step up. He really needs to have that contract type year that we paid him for. This defense, I have faith in. They're the top. You had top 6 scoring, and overall they're a top 9 defense, which was awesome. And I think this year, even with Landry going down, they could get a little bit better.
Yeah, Blake, my question about this defense, as I've always said, is your cornerbacks can't cover. And I know you two like to lump Byard in there, but I'm not talking about Byard. I'm talking about Roger McCreary, Christian Fulton, Caleb Farley. These guys are a liability. The secondary gave up the 8th most passing yards in the NFL last year. Caleb Farley has more back surgeries and ACL surgeries than he does games played in the NFL. I mean, if this isn't a question mark, then maybe I'm just wrong. But I feel like your cornerbacks are a question.
I mean, I think cornerbacks are always the wild card. They're the ones that are at the biggest disadvantage on the defense. You have grown men who are very fast running straight at you with your shoulders square to them. They have all the advantage. So look, they are the weak point on every defense, in my opinion. They don't have the ability to impose their will on everybody. They have to be smart. They have to be athletic. They have to learn. I think that these guys, up to this point, I can't argue the point that maybe they have been a liability at this point. But we have to see if they mature. They have to see if they've learned. They have to see if they grow. Saw some positive stuff in the preseason, but not all of it was positive, admittedly. I mean, some of them didn't look that good. I don't know. Caleb Farley, not really sure if he's the guy yet.
Parker, Caleb Farley, 3 games played, 4 tackles, and 1 pass defended. He was one of the worst PFF graded in the preseason at 57.2. Do we have more faith in this? Was it just preseason and let's just sit back and wait and see?
Well, I think on purpose they put him on an island. If you notice, they didn't give him much help. I think they were trying to get him. I think the guy's only played 27 games at cornerback, so I don't think we know. But there's a name you forgot, and that's Fulton, who was a top 20 cornerback last year.
Oh, I've got his name here. He was in there. Roger McCreary, Christian Fulton, Caleb Farley.
Oh, well, that made my audio's been my Wi-Fi's so bad it made it breaking up on me. But Fulton was a top 20 guy, and I actually like what they're doing with the secondary. They cut some of these old guys aren't good. They drafted McCreary, who actually had some flashes. Moulton, as bad as you talked about, he's good at covering the slot. And you can't forget, you said you don't want to talk about the safety. You have to include the safeties. Byard's one of the leading interceptors of the ball in the NFL for the last 3 years, every single year. I just think that's a big part of it, and a reason they gave up so many passing yards. Obviously, that's their weakness. That's what teams are doing. I mean, it's hard to run against Big Jeff and these linebackers, Long, Cunningham. It's a pretty good run defense. So I appreciate that they went out and got a bunch of young guys because I'm looking at it going, okay, if these young guys actually work out that they've drafted and that they're trying to work on, man, I'd rather do that than go sign a bunch of 30 or 2-year-olds that are on the last ends of their contract and that are losing a step. Because if it works out, then all of a sudden you're like, man, we're set at corner for years because we're all on rookie deals and we're looking forward. So it is a question, but I don't know that it's a bad question. I don't know that it's a good question. We just don't know.
Blake, tell us about the 35-year-old that they got rid of from the secondary.
Oh, good Lord. Jackrabbit. Oh, everybody got nervous every time Jackrabbit got targeted, just because we knew it was
going right over his head.
I mean, we were just hoping for a bad pass.
Or Kevin Byard coming over the top to break it up.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he was bad. There was no getting around it. I mean, I could not stand watching him play in a Titans uniform, and I'm just glad I don't have to anymore.
Special teams, new punter in town, at least for a game. Kern's not going anywhere, right, Parker?
No, why would he go? Thank God he's not going to that trash can city up north. I just, I'll pop up here. But yes, but Stonehouse looked good. I mean, I can't blame the Titans for moving overall into him. Like, save a couple of $1 million, which doesn't sound like a lot in NFL terms, but that's another player. That's another upgrade, another position. That's giving Derrick Henry a little bit more. It's just, it's time. I mean, the Titans have had him for 13 years, before him, Craig Hendricks for 10 years. It's just time for the next guard. We've talked about this over the last couple of years. His net punting average for Kern has gone down every single year for 5 consecutive years.
Yeah, and I mean, the style that Tennessee plays, they like to flip the field with their punter. They play with a lot of confidence on offense and defense because of the things that Brett Kern was able to do. Whether it be pinning them inside the 10 or just hitting a boomer from the other end of the field. And we know now that Stonehouse, he's got that ability. If he's standing on the other team's 10, he could put it on the other 10 probably. So the question is he as much of an artist as Brett Kern was with those short pooch punch? But I'm sure he taught him a thing or two on his way out.
It's another wait and see for me. I saw a lot of good things in the preseason. I think the biggest advantage that the Tennessee Titans have in this AFC South division is you have the best coach in the division.
It's a huge advantage.
And that goes a long way in any division.
Yeah.
But you guys ready to try to predict this?
Yeah.
For the defending champs?
I think so.
I was going to say, I touched on injuries earlier. I had one other stat. I was making sure I got everything I wanted to say. Those injuries, we talk about Tannehill having a down year. Tannehill was impacted by those injuries. He only had his starting weapons around him for 10% of his snaps last year. That is it. 10% of his snaps he had the starting lineup. So hopefully the injury bug doesn't bite us like it did.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. All right, I guess I'll start us off. I went around and around and around here. I went all over the place as a homer, saying, "Oh, we're going to win 14 games," and then I went all the way down.
Only 14.
No.
He said only 14.
but then I got, after watching some of the preseason, I'm like, man, we might be doing good to win 8.
Oh, jeez.
But now I think after everything is finally settled, I think I've come to a place where I feel like we're going to go 11-6.
I think that's right, probably on the money. And you know what, though, guys? I hate to say it because I always talk about it, but for my own team, there is regression here. The Titans were 6-1 in games decided by less than a touchdown last year. A lot of that goes to what Bradley just said with Vrabel, with coaching, right? But that's a hard stat to maintain. The Titans break this regression model over the last 2-3 years because that has been the case since Vrabel's been there. Like every year they win these games they're not supposed to win, but they do this. So this year, Henry, the King, will feast again. Last year, the Titans faced the hardest, toughest run defense in the league schedule-wise. This year, bottom 3. And we talked about the O-line. Overall, the Titans will face a bottom 3 defense in the term of defensive lines. This is the first time we've won back-to-back divisions since the 60s. 3 in a row, baby. Agree with Blake. 11-6.
All great points. All great points. It's like Parker's reading my notes here. Negative regression. But what does that really mean in the grand scheme of the AFC South? I don't think you have to win very many games to win this division.
You might be right.
Here's what I'm going to go with. Of course, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I hate the Colts. Okay.
We can all
let me
agree
just go
on
ahead
that.
and
Now you're reading my notes.
For all you Colts fans, I hate the Colts. The Texans are kind of like a thorn in the side of my team, but the Titans, I don't have a hatred. It's a where I want my team to be. And so here's what I'm thinking. And Blake saw in previous podcast, this was the division I had a certain team at 2. I had a certain team at 4, and I didn't know what to do with these other 2. So here's what I ended up with. I think Robert Woods was brought in initially to be the number 2. I think the plan was supposed to be AJ Brown and Robert Woods. I understand the math behind the production. I don't like your right side of your offensive line. I definitely don't like your cornerbacks, as you've heard. I think this is the year that gets Tannehill completely out. He may have been gone anyway with some salary cap stuff going on. Negative regression. The Tennessee Titans miss the playoffs and go 8-9.
Just comment below. Comment below. We will respond.
Please do. Good Lord. I don't know how I can even sit next to this guy.
We're ready to move on. We're going north to the team we all hate, the Indianapolis Colts. Time for the Colts. Last year they finished 9-8, and there's a big reason why they didn't make the playoffs. Is because they went to Duval week 18 and got that ass whipped. But these two say, hey, here's Carson Wentz. That's why they didn't make the playoffs. Frank Reich back. One Indianapolis writer called it the worst loss in Indianapolis Colts football history. Hey. That week 18. How do you sum up last year's performance, Parker, from the Colts?
Yeah, I think they were favored by 16 in that game and lost by 16. I think of all the teams, our projections for the Colts last year were incredibly accurate. And look, I think I do an incredible job of being unbiased about any teams, but let me state, Indiana's garbage, and they have the most overrated GM and coach in the league. They don't win to start the season. Frank Wright has never won a season opener. He didn't last year. He's 5-9 during September. People across the NFL love Chris Ballard. He's 41-40 in 5 years. In 6 years, John Robinson is 59-38. If the Colts go undefeated this year, Ballard won't have Robinson's 6-year record. I think this team last year, they performed exactly what they should have. I think it's looking back at last year, they did what they should have. They had Carson Wentz, who's going to pull some out of his butt, and who's also going to just fall on his butt. So they did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. I mean, trash quarterback, they didn't deserve to make the playoffs, my opinion. And you'll have to, I don't know what order we're going in here, but check out our NFC South opinion of Carson Wentz's.
Well, he's situation. In the NFC East.
I mean, NFC East. Check NFC East. Sorry. I've got NFC South on my mind here. NFC East. Yeah, go check out our NFC. I'll tag it right here.
Yeah, we've already talked about
go ahead and
the
check
Washington Commanders and the juggernaut that they're going to run into week 1.
Yeah. You go ahead and check that out.
Duval's coming for you. The nightmare is coming to you.
The nightmare.
He doesn't like to see Jackson get off the bus.
Oh my God. Yeah, the Colts.
So Wentz is out.
Yeah.
And what do, Parker? They bring in some old bag of bones from Atlanta. They bring in Matt Ryan. They also bring in even older Nick Foles. I mean, what is this?
They went to the retirement home and got him.
I will say, Matt Ryan is significantly better than Carson Wentz and Phillip Rivers during that part of his year. But dude, they just keep turning in these old guys. Matt Ryan is old. Yo, he is my age, and I couldn't get out of bed this morning. This guy has got to go play quarterback for the NFL. I don't understand it, but it couldn't happen to a better team because after having decades of stability with Manning, falling face first into luck, they now are on year 4 with 5 different quarterbacks: Brissett, Hoyer, Rivers, Wentz, Ryan. So good luck. I don't know.
He's so happy. He's so happy right now. Yeah, here's the 5 more years of 5 more quarterbacks you go through, you assholes. I just can't stand this team. And you know what? I got to thinking, he just came off his worst year ever, and he's a million years old. That offensive line better be good because he ain't running from nobody unless he's got his walker out there to get away from him.
I think GM said it wasn't good enough because they brought in a couple of offensive linemen in the free agency. Their bigger moves were in free agency, bringing in on defense. Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Faison, Rodney McLeod, Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, they're loading up on D, but I mean, are they the Iowa of the AFC South? I mean, are they going to plan on winning 12-6 ball games? 12-9 on the scoreboard?
I don't get it, man. They got Jonathan Taylor, the most overrated running back ever, but we'll see. I'm not really convinced this team is worth a flying shit. I really am not. This is a giant pile of horse shit, in my opinion.
Well, Bradley mentioned the defense and a couple of points on it. One, again, like we talked about the Titans, like we talked about with a lot of teams, regression with turnovers. We talked about the Cowboys not being able to force as many as they did last year. Well, guess who was second in forcing turnovers? Colts at 33. It's just not going to happen again. And look, they brought in Gus Bradley for the big coordinator. He was great with the Legion of Boom. He had the players to make that scheme work. He just doesn't adjust, y'all. Like, we sat here on numerous podcasts and talked about how the Chiefs would pick apart his defense at the Raiders because he just would not run what he needed to run. So while they brought in some players, I'm questioning the leader of it.
Fair point.
It definitely is. Last year, they finished 9th in both scoring offense and scoring defense. Parker and I are going to say the same thing, negative regression. It's going to happen. I don't think that either one of those, offense or defense, finished 9th. I think you have a better chance at the defense being pretty good still. I mean, let's face it, you're playing the Jags and the Texans. That's 4 of your games right there. So your defense should already be okay.
And sit here, think about this. With Bradley, good news for Tannehill, who's behind a questionable line. Good news for Davis Mill, rookie. Good news for Trevor Lawrence trying to do better. Because Bradley doesn't blitz. Last year, he blitzed less than any other defensive coordinator in the league.
Well, that's what me and Bradley are. I was literally just showing that to Bradley. Like, where are all the sacks?
I mean, they're big guys, DeForest Buckner. And they brought in a questionable character guy in Yannick Ngakoue. I know all about it from the Jags.
Yeah, man. This team's trash. Screw this team. I don't understand what all the Colts love is about.
I'll give you one more fun fact before you want to give us any predictions. Their last AFC title was all the way back in 2014. Since then, every single team in the AFC South has won a division, even mine, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Texans have multiple. The Titans have won a division. Your last playoff win was 2015. Peyton Manning is not walking through those damn doors to keep going and finding people in wheelchairs like Matt Ryan.
I like it when we can
I really do hate this team.
Well, we can just completely biased against the team. This is great.
I don't know. I just go away. I mean, again, why is there so much? But the media loves the Colts all of a sudden. Like here within the last month or so, it's been like, oh, they're going to win, 12 games. They're winning 12 games this year. Just because
I don't understand why they. Yeah, I don't. It's because everybody's in love with Ballard. They really are. I don't understand. Like last year, they brought in Wentz because Reich was so good with him. We saw how that worked out. So this year, they're like, you know what? That worked out so well. Let's bring in this other quarterback that's aged and bad. Let's bring in Foles. Yeah, let's see how that works out for him if Ryan goes down. The Colts are favored to win this division, and I don't understand why. I mean, it could happen, but I just do not get it. There's nothing, like Bradley just said, they haven't won it in 7 years. So I'll kick this off. I just have more questions than answers about the Colts on both sides of the ball. Like, I don't know who the receiver is. Michael Pittman could be dominant. But after that, who is it? Paris Campbell, who we've seen play like 3 snaps. They have T.Y. back in there.
Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield and Mo Alley Cox, the tight end.
Yeah. I'm just telling you, Taylor led the league inside with rushes inside the 20 with all these type of things. Again, you said a regression. He is not going to be the guy that he was last year. Ballard is 1 game over 500 for his career as the Colts. I don't see why that historical change should change. Not an 8.
It's like Parker and I are copying off each other here. They might as well change Lucas Oil's emblem out there into the Lucas Oil retirement home for quarterbacks. Again, 9 and 8. Go away.
The Indianapolis Colts, 9 and 8 last year. I'm going 10 and 7, and I don't really even know why. I think I'm going with the numbers.
I will tell you why. Because this year they have the 3rd easiest schedule in NFL, and they need to start 2-0 because they start against the Jags and the Texans. If they don't start 2-0, like legit, if they start 0-2, look for heads to roll.
I question whether
they should definitely start 2-0. I mean, I don't know. That second game, though, they're going to a place that they haven't won since I was in diapers, apparently.
I don't think they're going to win it.
They can't win in Jacksonville.
I don't think they're going to win it.
And it doesn't matter what quarterback because they've had plenty during that
time. And Frank Wright has never won his opening game.
Wow.
They are a 7 to 8 point favorite against the Texans in week 1. I'm going 10 wins. That's all I got on this team. Let's go down south to the rebuilding Houston Texans. They finished with a record of 4-13. All the coaching staff is gone. They put in Levy Smith now, the could-be sitting duck. There were some positives, man. We all knew it was going to be a rebuild anyway, but lo and behold, the quarterback we all made fun of and questioned, Davis Mills, 66% passing, 16 touchdowns, 10 picks, and 88 rating. The best by stats. The best rookie quarterback in the AFC South, Parker.
Yeah. Davis Mills might not suck. He's got a fast release. I mean, he's got a fast release. When he threw on first down last year, which did not happen a lot, he was in the top half of the league, which is good for a rookie that we didn't expect to do anything. I mean, and think about this, y'all. If you look at all his passes, even with what he accomplished, on 20% of Davis Mills' pass attempts last year, he had 0 people open. Like, he might not be bad. And looking back at last year as a whole, this team won 4 games. They actually led 7 games at halftime. So, unlike a team we might talk about here in a minute that quit last year, this team was actually performing for their coach, which I do not think should have been fired.
Look. I can't believe that I feel like we were kind of leading the charge on the Davis Mills train. I don't know why. He looks like a halfway decent quarterback. I mean, I won't go better than halfway decent. He's not a great NFL quarterback, but like Parker said, he might not suck. He might not be absolutely awful. It's funny this year, I do think Levy Smith. is a sitting duck. And this is not a tough, I mean, it's not a great year for him, probably. Did I read somewhere they have like the 5th hardest schedule this year or something like that? So, I mean, it's an uphill battle for Davis Mills and Levy Smith. But I think that they're probably one of those teams that are probably going to surprise people in some occasions. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to win, but they'll probably fight. They'll probably give some people some headaches. Never know. They might slip up and beat a couple of people they're not supposed to beat. But
y'all both mentioned it, so I just got to say it. Bradley mentioned about how y'all both said how Levy Smith is a sitting duck, and I agree. I wasn't a huge fan of David Culley. I don't know why he should have been fired, but Levy Smith should not have gotten another head coaching job, and I don't know why he did. So looking back at this, Levy Smith was the head coach for Chicago, right? He was 81-63. There he was actually pretty good. I think he was wrongly fired. But after that, he was fired in the 2012 season. It was a winning season. Since then, the Bears have had one season over 500. But then he gets hired with the Bucs, and Levy Smith goes 8-24. Then he goes to Illinois, right? You should be able to do better at college. You're an NFL guy. In Illinois, he goes 17-39. Then he comes back as the defensive coordinator for the Texans in his first 2 years. This is what this guy does. The defense for the Texans ranked 27th and 31st. Why this man is the head coach, I don't see it. You're right. Sitting duck.
Placeholder. I'll tell you why, man. Placeholder. I thought they did good job in acquiring talent this year. It's just, this isn't the year. They have a lot of money available next year, Parker. If Davis Mills isn't the quarterback, it's going to be a new coach. They can get their own quarterback. The draft is loaded with them. Or even if they don't get one there, maybe one slips through for free agency. They're going to have tons of cash next year. Derek Stingley Jr. added. Kenyon Green added. New offensive lineman, the center, Justin Britt added. Guard, A.J. Brown from the Jags added.
they're building.
So they're reloading. It wasn't like they just said, hey, we're going to hire Levy Smith and we're just going to tank. Because I don't think they're tanking.
I really
think
don't
they're
either.
retooling. They're rebuilding.
It'll be a process, right? And I mean, like I said, they may sneak up on a couple people, but I mean, they got a tough schedule. They're still not quite where they need to be at quarterback, in my opinion, unless Davis Mills just takes a huge leap forward, which I don't necessarily think is going to happen this year. But yeah, that's my opinion. What do you want to talk about next?
Offense. So
Defense.
30th, they were horrible. 30th in scoring. We already talked about Davis Mills. They bring in rookie from Florida, Damian Pierce. Should be the man at running back. Brandon Cooks, one of Parker's folks. I'll let him talk about Cooks. The rookie Mechie coming off a torn ACL probably won't play. What do you see on their offense?
Yeah, sadly, Betsy's going to probably be out for the year. And then maybe he'll be back next year. He's got some stuff he's struggling with. Cooks, the most underappreciated receiver in the league. He's at 1,000 yards receiving for 6 straight years. I mean, the only other person I think off the top of my head that's done that's Mike Evans. You know, who else is doing that? It just super underappreciated. But you talked about them retooling and rebuilding, and they finally are. They're finally able to do that this year. They weren't able to do it last year. They're sitting in limbo with the Predator guy over on the sidelines. So this is the first year they're actually able to do that. And there's another big-time guy they brought in. Well, Pierce, by the way, as you mentioned, man, he is going off in preseason, in training camp. And looking back now, people are even questioning Mullins even more. Like, why was this guy not on the field? He is not only himself in as a starting role, but like, I am the starter. He is the guy there.
I think so.
Yep.
Defense, they were 27th in scoring, went very young there. I'm thinking more of the same from this Texans defense this year. I don't see any reason to believe it's going to be, whoa, they went from 27th to top 10. I just don't think this is the year. But all these young guys get a chance to grow.
Yeah, and that's invaluable, right? Being able to get some experience, there's nothing like ripping the Band-Aid off. And that's what they're doing here with these young guys. I mean, you look at their defensive stats. Again, we're asking the question, where the hell are all the sacks? They don't have any, right? So it's always good to be able to get these young kids some opportunities to get in there and make an impact early. You never know what the future is going to hold as far as a new coaching staff, because I would say all of us probably agree at some point here in the near future, there will be a new coaching staff, and hopefully they can do something with the talent that they're building.
Last year, they were one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL. They were the worst red zone defense in all of football. The guy that was in charge of that is their head coach. Again, I don't understand the promotion. But as far as defense, the thing I do like is they drafted a potential star in Stingley. I mean, this guy, if anyone forgets, if you go back and look at PFF, since PFF has been around, in 2019, Stingley had the most valuable season ever outside of a quarterback. Let that sink in. I mean, than any other player, any wide receiver, anybody. That's how locked down Stingley was. So if he can get back to that form, that's what you need, man. If you can, their season is a success. If Stingley looks good, that doesn't really matter. Everything else is gravy, right? If Mills is great. But that's just such a huge game-changing lockdown position. If he is excellent, then man, that changes that defense completely.
I just let them play. Just have a little patience down there in Houston. Unfortunately, I think you're on the come up. If we can figure out if Davis Mills is the answer, then great. You're already a couple of years ahead. If he's not, so what? You're going to have plenty of draft capital, plenty of money to go next year. I believe you have an uptick. I'm going 5-12, but I think the feeling of this season will be better than what the actual record is. 5-12.
Totally agree. I think that it's a little better. It's going to feel better than it's actually going to look on your record sheet. I'm actually going to go out on a little bit of a limb here and say that you are going to sneak up on a couple people. So I'm going 6-11.
I just lost my spot, but I know that I had them going 6-11 as well. Last year, they were underdogs and on by average by 6.5 points per game. So maybe that gets a little bit better this year. Again, like I said, they were leading at halftime in 7 of those games. So I expect them to be better. So I don't see why they should win more games. 6-11 with potential to go 7-10.
It's not starting out that way in week 1 against the vaunted Colts that are somehow a 7.5 to 8 point favorite. But good luck to the Texans. Go ahead and get that win against the Colts.
What happens if they come out and they just donkey stomp them? They donkey stomp the Colts in week 1.
I mean, this has nothing to do with this podcast, but I'm taking the Colts. I'm taking the Texans plus the points, and I don't even mind if you beat the Colts.
I will be a Texans fan for exactly 5 minutes if that happens. Anyways,
I think it might happen. Like, why would Frank Reich win his first game now? Well, what's the difference?
Yep.
Nothing would make me happier.
All right. Transition, last but not least, to a team that has earned the number 1 draft pick in back-to-back years. We're going to Florida, Jacksonville Jaguar.
Boy, oh boy.
Duval Urban Meyer is out after the most dysfunctional season ever in Jacksonville. And that's pretty hard to say because they've had plenty of them. But that's the whole story of last year is, unfortunately, the Urban Meyer saga, it outshined the fact that Trevor Lawrence was coming.
Yeah, it's really a shame that you have someone touted as a generational talent like Trevor Lawrence come in and have to take part in some kind of weird experiment with a college coach who's just known for being a terrible person. And then he comes to Jacksonville and he proves that he is exactly who we all thought he was. Just an absolute atrocious situation for him to have to come into. I'm sorry for everybody that had to be involved with that. Really hard to even compare anything to last year, given who they brought in as head coach this year.
I've got a lot of stats and things we're going to go through, but a lot of them you got to take with a grain of salt, right? Because Bradley said Urban Meyer might be the disastrous things that's happened in Jacksonville. I could disagree. I think it's the most disastrous hire in the history of football. Like, it was so bad. The problem with that is the guy that hired him is still the guy making the decisions. I just don't understand how you can make the worst hire in the history of football and keep Trent Baalke. I just do not understand it. So those are the two stories. Looking back at last year, it stinks the story's not Trevor Lawrence or Etienne. I mean, he got hurt or whatever. The story looking back is 100% the front office. Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke are the stories for this team from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, Bradley, because you're more on the pulse of Duval media than we are. What's going on with that? Did they have any explanation as to why are we still sticking with the guy that brought freaking Urban Meyer in here?
So the question starts at the top. It starts with the owner, Shad Khan. I believe Shad Khan has good intentions for the city of Jacksonville.
Don't doubt it.
He continues to pump money not only to stadium renovations, practice field, building new ones as we speak here, the community. He has the right intention. He just doesn't know football, Parker.
Yeah.
He doesn't. That's what set you hate. I try to even steer away from the owner because I don't want to like go after it because there's that guy's not going to be replaced, right? Like
no.
So that's why I'm looking at the GM. Really, if you want to talk about ownership, that he should have been the firing Baalke. But I like to stick away from that. Just hire your guy that knows football and go with it. It's getting to be. I looked up some stuff over the last 10 years. The Jags are 42 and 119 over the last 10 years. They average 18 points per game in that stretch. Win total.
It hurt.
The win total and the points per game are the worst in the NFL. And during that, here's what's bad. This is what I'm getting to with the hiring the right GMs. Because during that same stretch, when it was the worst points per game, it was the worst schedule, they spent more money in free agency than any other team in the NFL. I want them to get a GM that's competent, and I just don't think the guy that is there.
I mean, it just makes you feel like Baalke's taking Khan for a ride.
A lot of that was Dave Caldwell, though. I mean, Baalke.
Yeah, no. He's only been there for a couple of years. I just meant like it's just a history of still going.
Right. And I mean, I'm available. If you'd like me to step into that GM role, I can go ahead and do it. Whenever we get Parker back, we'll add him back here. So some of the things that Baalke did in the offseason this year: added wide receiver Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, tight end Evan Ingram, guard Brandon Sheriff. Rookie is going to have to step in and start right away from Kentucky, the rookie center, Luke Fortner. So here you go, Parker, to your point. They're spending money again because they have to.
Yeah, and the Sheriff is a great addition. The offensive line is going to be better. I think I would really applaud that one. And they spent a ton of money on Christian Kirk, who's not a number one receiver. He's a slot guy. I mean, which is fine. I just hope they use him there because he is elite from the slot. He's really good. I still think Old Man Marvin, as we said last year, is going to lead this team in everything. Last year, I think he led them in targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And I think he's going to do the exact same thing. But they have to spend this money, right? They've got to go out and add people to try to get better. If he's the guy.
Blake, they had to because statistically they were dead last in offensive scoring at 14.9 points per game. Their rookie quarterback only completed 59% of passes, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks, a 72 rating. We already touched on Davis Mills was the best rookie in this division.
I mean, by stats. I mean, so that's my thing. Again, it's hard for me to compare anything from last year because I think, Parker, it was you that brought it up last year constantly during the season. We're not running a fucking NFL offense here. We're throwing the ball within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and we think we're going to get something done in the NFL. And that's just not going to happen.
No. It's just history. Go look at Urban Meyer. He runs a horizontal, not vertical offense. And in college, it works because he can out-recruit everybody, and he just has better players. The day he left Ohio State, that team got better offensively. It is what it is. We said it before they played a snap in the game. And I went back and looked at some stuff with Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know how much water this stuff holds because that offense was so bad. There were flashes from Lawrence last year when he faced pressure, and he was in the bottom six of actually taking that sack. So he was elusive and able to get rid of the ball. But some of the bad things, and again, this could be Urban Meyer breaking him. I don't know. There were bad plays too. Of starting quarterbacks, Lawrence was in the bottom 5 for catchable passes. He was in the bottom 5 for red zone passes. Last time we saw Lawrence in Week 18, it was fantastic when Urban wasn't there. So I don't know. I don't know. So we went into the season with the off season with a high note. One other good thing, if you're a Jacksonville fan, last year he faced some of the tough pass defenses in the league, like top 3 tough. This year, bottom 3.
Yeah, and I mean that for me is the big wild card because we know how good we think we know how good Trevor Lawrence can be, and as just watching him in college, I know he's a good quarterback. Allegedly, NFL's obviously a little bit different. He was in an awful offense for him. You talked about his passes. A lot of them weren't catchable. I don't know how many of those are him just trying to throw the ball away, or if he's
they
throwing.
Definitely were. I mean, that's why the sack totals are so low. He's getting rid of the ball.
That's what I'm saying. And he's throwing the ball within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and it's like maybe he doesn't like what he sees, and maybe he's literally throwing it high just to throw the ball away. I think he's that cerebral of a quarterback personally. So it's really hard for me to make a judgment on whether Trevor Lawrence really is the guy or not, just because I'll just say this. I really hope that the Urban Meyer experiment did not ruin Trevor Lawrence, because I do think Trevor Lawrence is a good kid. I think he's probably extremely talented. I think he can be a good NFL quarterback, but he's still got to go prove it.
Yep. Speaking of offense and coaching there, Doug Peterson, the players coach. I know Bradley's seen some of this. I mean, it's as far opposite down there now as it is when it was to Urban. I mean, polar opposites. And Peterson has one job only. This is it. It's just to make sure Urban didn't break Trevor. That's it. That's your job, buddy. Like, get down there and figure that out. And I think the reason I don't think Urban broke him is because he didn't shy and disappear into the night. Trevor was actually the guy at press conferences coming out and sounding like the man.
That's right. We called him the more mature person all year.
Yeah, he was. He was the man in that as a rookie, which is, as a rookie and being 4 years younger than Kenny Pickett. But that's still just
4 years younger than Pickett. Good God.
I just don't. So I don't know. This is one of the harder win totals for me to go, but offensively, I just don't know what to expect.
Something interesting coming out of Duval on offense to look for, if you wanted to look for, and even for fantasy purposes, is the running back room. You've got both James Robinson that led the way. He's coming off an Achilles. You've got Travis Etienne, the rookie last year, who didn't play one NFL snap. He is back this year. I really hope that they can get that part of the game moving a little bit, take some pressure off of Trevor. Yeah, I don't need him throwing 800 times this season.
You mean run an NFL offense? Oh, how about
shocking.
that?
So, and Parker said, I mean, he's just surrounded with NFL people this year. He's got Doug Peterson at the top.
His mentor, he's like Parker said, that's his job, to mentor Trevor.
He's got Press Taylor. Say what you want about the Taylor family. Go check out the AFC North if you want to hear about Zach. He's got Jim Bob Cooter. He's got
JB.
Mike McCoy surrounding him. So they've put him around NFL people. I think he's set up for better success. We'll see what the schedule has. Defense, I mean, 28th in points allowed. Their new ads are rookie Trayvon Walker, rookie Devin Lloyd, rookie Chad Muma, cornerback from the champs, the Rams, Darius Williams comes in. The tackling machine from the Falcons, whatever that means, and Foye Oluokun comes in because they lost their two top tacklers in Miles Jack and Damian Williams. But this group, literally, if they're going to do anything anytime soon, they have to turn the ball over, man. This turnover percentage thing, turnover differential, I should say, it needs to be close to just zero. It doesn't need to be, oh, the turnover differential is -20. How are you going to win games with that? You can't.
Nope.
We keep talking about regression. There's positive regression also. Before I get that, I tell you why it was so bad, because it's fun. All those reasons why they should improve, but so does this defense, because they could not be much worse, as you touched on. They face, and these numbers I'm about to give you is with teams they faced were below average last year on offense. And here's what they did: last in the league getting off the field and 3 and outs, next to last in allowing passes complete, one of the worst teams in the league at generating sacks. And as to Bradley's point, they forced 9 turnovers last year. It's the last in the league. The next worst was the Jets. They had 5 more. You can add up the turnovers forced by the Jags over the last 2 years, and it was less than what 9 teams had last year. So there has to be positive regression coming, right? Like, there has to be back to that mean, as Bradley said. The zero, it's just kind of what it usually does. So they also got Tyson Campbell, who's looking to be like a lockdown guy at corner there during camp. So who knows?
Yeah. And Parker, you've been saying this entire offseason, preseason. This team makes the best case for going worst to first. Now, no one's saying that they're going to straight up win the AFC South.
I'm not either.
But they could have the biggest swing this year out of any team out there, in my opinion.
Happens every year. Every year there's a team that finishes worse in the division and then comes in first. Baltimore is probably the leading candidate for it, but I was taking them out of that because of just how bad they were hurt.
Didn't even count.
Right? But as far as like normal situations, sort of, if you can call it that, this is the best. Not just do they add people, but not to step on Bradley's toes, we're about to say this. Their biggest addition is MTSU's own Mike Caldwell as defensive coordinator. Like, this guy with the Tampa Bay over the last 3 years, I know they have great players, but still, they were elite. And what can we expect from him? The opposite, as we talked about earlier, about how a certain coordinator is never going to blitz. This guy is going to blitz, and he is going to blitz constantly. So if you don't have a good offensive line looking at you, you better be prepared for it.
One person that knows he's going down in week 1 is Carson Wentz, Blake.
Hey,
he's going down hard.
Somebody please tee off on that guy. I promise he'll throw the ball over his head backwards to try to get away from you.
And see, they switched up pretty hard to the 3-4 defense. They're going to have Josh Allen standing. Oh, go ahead.
I'm saying, which is the only thing that kind of makes sense to something that is very confusing there is what they're doing at linebacker, because they're paying linebackers and drafting 4 of them, and I'd say 4, but not really. But they've got a lot of them there, so hopefully they can spread them around a little bit in the 3-4.
Yeah, I mean, I joked about it all the time. They got like 7 linebackers.
It's incredible. It really
is. Josh Allen's going to be standing up. Trayvon Walker, the number 1 pick, the rookie's going to be standing up on the other side. Josh Allen led the team with only 7.5 sacks. That number's got to be higher. I know all eyes will be on the rookie, but hopefully the rookie makes things easier for Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen was literally double teamed, and then if he got through that, he was getting chipped by the running back.
Yeah,
I mean, it was impossible.
Teeing off on him.
Jeez. So hopefully that opens up a little bit. Parker mentioned Tyson Campbell. He improved steadily over the year, even with the Urban Meyer fiasco. One name I wanted to throw out to both of you, because you don't follow the team as much, is safety. He was a rookie last year, but didn't get to play because Urban Meyer's an idiot. Safety Andre Cisco. I want you to remember that name. He is the closest thing, if you think Kevin Byard. I mean, not like an all-pro level, not yet. But if you think that's what he can do. He can. Mm-hmm. He's the ball hawk. He can be 20 yards off the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden, here he comes. He's going to come up to the line of scrimmage and maybe get a sack.
He didn't play because Urban can't be expected to know all the names of his players on the team.
No. Like, go ask Bernie Parley, whatever my coach's name is.
That's Bernie.
Idiot. All right.
Oh,
I don't got anything else.
Right. I'm ready. I'll kick this off. And I have a very astute point here, very, very analytical point of why they're going to be better. I think they're better simply because the players are going to try. Like, if you hate your boss and he's kicking your coworkers and going out clubbing when you're prepping for the next day, you probably are going to try. I think the Jags get a couple of wins just because they have a likable guy in the room. I don't care if he's good or not. 7-10 in preseason for the Jags.
I swear. Look at this. I swear he's been copying my notes, or I'm copying his. One of the two. I've got them going 7-10. I think that they have a variance of wins that's probably exceeds that. But I think that they're going to be much improved. I think that this could be the year where they break the cycle and don't have the number one pick. No, I really do think they're going to be much improved this year. They're not going to be a complete laughing stock like they've been for once. But still, Duval is the Titans' second home. 7-10.
All right. So my prediction comes down to this. A game that will be flexed on week 18. The Tennessee Titans visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Parker says that game won't matter to Tennessee, but I argue it will. Because the winner of this game will lock up and earn the number 7 seed in the playoffs. The Titans will need it. The Jags will need it. But you know what happens when you come to Duval week 18? The Jacksonville Jaguars win that game and go to the postseason. They're going 9-8.
That's only when Indy is in Duval. Titans have a home away from home, as we all know.
Yeah, no, all the players have second homes there.
Changes. I'm going Indy.
Whenever the Yulee Dozer comes into town, I don't think you got to worry about it.
It'll be Indy 10 wins, Jacksonville 9 wins, Tennessee 8.
Little parody here on the panel.
10-9-8.
Little parody. This is good. This is good stuff. We'll keep an eye on it as the season goes along. Guys, thanks for joining us tonight on this, our AFC South predictions show. While you're at it, go ahead and comment down below. And while you're there, hit the like and subscribe button there on YouTube. Give us a rumble on Rumble. Follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms on the go. Gentlemen, final thoughts.
Well, I've got to go back to the well here for something if it'll load on my awful Wi-Fi. But my friend, Mr. A.J. Brown.
Oh, boy.
Quote, my biggest teacher is my loses and my lessons. And I'm so grateful for them. End quote. Mr. A.J. Brown.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than an A.J. Brown quote, right?
My final thought is write all your get well wishes, your Christmas cards, send your donations to the nursing home in Indianapolis and the Colts. This is it. This is your last year, Indy, before you completely fall off the face of the earth. So you better get it done or else.
5 more years of terrible Indy quarterbacks coming. That's what I'm hoping for. But as always, and don't you forget it, it is two-tone blue all the way. You guys be well.